I'm Ashley Michaels, and this is Colorado Point of View. The Colorado State Legislature wrapped up its 2025 session this week, sending about 500 bills to the governor's desk. And the list includes a balanced budget with more than $1 billion in cuts and a school finance bill that will funnel $250 million in extra funding into Colorado classrooms. Lawmakers also passed new restrictions on firearms, increased protections for immigrants, and a measure to make Uber and Lyft safer, although that one may prompt Uber to close up shop here in Colorado completely. Here's what Governor Polis had to say as session wrapped up.
As we celebrate this progress, we also know that there's more work to be done to cut costs, to expand housing, to make life in Colorado safer and more prosperous and better for everyone. And while this legislative session is now wrapped up, for us, the work is just getting started.
Well, Colorado House Republicans said this session was a successful one for them as well, despite being in the minority party. Now, Minority Leader Rose Pugliese said she feels like Democrats are listening more to Republican ideas and concerns more than they used to, but she's still frustrated that their affordability ideas were often shot down.
The floor fights that we had really focused on affordability, public safety, protecting the taxpayer Bill of Rights. As we all know, there was a resolution that was going to come forward that was going to challenge the constitutionality of the taxpayer Bill of Rights.
All right, let's bring in our analysts. On the Democratic side, we have senior presidential and gubernatorial advisor Andy Boyan. And on the Republican side, we have the director of Advance Colorado, Michael Fields. Thank you both for being here. Andy, I'll start with you on this one. So we actually haven't had a lot of chance to talk about what's happening in the legislature, the three of us here. I want to get your thoughts as we're now wrapping up session. Was this a successful year for Coloradans?
I think it was overall. I think there was a lot of things that were talked about. The floor fights that Rose Pugliese talked about, I think, were fair and honest and straightforward. The interesting thing that I think, a couple of things that I think were interesting, really this was a session about guns, immigration, and unions, really, if you look at it. We have a $1.2 billion deficit that's now been all but solved and a $44 billion budget. So there's a lot that has to go on bipartisan-wise, regardless of the fact that we don't have a supermajority, but we have majority. And so in the House and in the Senate, there's a lot of interest to have Republicans speak up as well. And again, to what Pugliese said there's a lot of bipartisan work and interest in some of these big significant issues. Gun rights, I think, is something we wanted to tackle right away. I think you saw that in Senate Bill 3. We were interested in trying to get something done there for at least the opportunity to have training for certain guns purchased. So that was a success. School funding was approved. I think the legal fight over House Bill 1312 over the legal protection of transgender was passed. And I think also, Senate Bill 5, which is interesting, and we'll talk more about that, I'm sure, was interesting regarding unions. So there's a lot going on here. But I think overall, what Democrats are interested in doing is really sort of looking at Colorado and trying to protect Colorado from what's going on nationally. I think Trump has a very strong interest in pushing an agenda forward that isn't necessarily what Colorado wants. And so I think what Coloradans are interested in doing, and we have the legislators doing, is really listening to both sides, trying to figure out a way to enhance the protections for Coloradans and make sure that the taxpayers are getting their money's worth. That's really what we were doing this session. I think we succeeded. All
right, let's hear from Michael on this one. Was this a successful year for Coloradans?
I don't think so. And I think, we're always happy when session ends because there's less bills that are being passed that I think are hurting Coloradans. I think that was on the positive side. There was bipartisan support for the budget. They had to come up with some cuts. They were able to do that. As Leader Pugliese said, Tabor lawsuit, that was a big one to be able to shoot that down. We've had Tabor for over 30 years. It's been very successful. It allows us to vote on tax increases, and that ended up dying. Didn't have enough Democratic support. Didn't even get through one of the houses, which I think was good. Also, there was implementation of one of the measures that we passed last year, law enforcement, getting more funding to law enforcement, bipartisan bill to have that happen over the next 10 years, which I think will help make Colorado safer. But there were a lot of bad bills that got through. I think that the governor's going to sign a bill that cements sanctuary status for the state, which I don't think is a good idea. There are more fees, and they kind of nickel and dime us every day, and adding to fees, making cost of living higher. So I think overall, there's these goals, and if you watch Governor Polis talk about it, we want to be safer, we want to be more affordable. Nothing has been moving in that direction over the last few years, and I don't think anything changed this session to make things better.
Okay, so Polis has not signed all of the bills that were passed this session. In fact, he's already used his veto power a couple of times, and we're just learning he's going to use it at least one more time. I want to hear from both of you sort of your take on Polis doing more than one veto. I mean, does this signal any problems in the Colorado Democratic Party?
I think there's been a divide between the Democrats in the legislature and Polis on certain issues for a long period of time. I don't think it's anything new, but there were some high-profile ones that happened. You think about the open meetings one that he vetoed, the social media one he vetoed. There's a lot of talk that they were going to, override the veto, that they were going to come in and do something. Neither of those happened. And then obviously anything that he's vetoing now, they can't override because they're out of session. I think labor peace one, that has been an interesting one the entire session. It's probably been one of the biggest bills out there where you have an enormous amount of support for those bills, that policy with the House and the Senate. But Polis has said, no, you need to get business on board. They were trying to make deals. That didn't happen. And so now he said that he's going to veto this. And the union's coming back saying, we're going to keep coming back next year. We might do a ballot measure, that does different things to try to make it stronger for unions in the state. But I think they don't have the people with them. They're not going to pass a ballot measure. And really the governor is saying, we need to be business friendly. We have pretty good policies when it comes to that right now already. Why change that? And so you do see this kind of back and forth with Polis, and there's a few other issues that he still could veto. But you're the governor. I don't think he's losing any sway at the Capitol right now. The fact that they haven't overridden him, that they're constantly negotiating and changing bills, and you can always tell when a bill changes right at the end, and you're like, oh, Governor Polis put something in there, and he'll probably sign it now, but it's watered down a lot. So there are constant negotiations, unlike past governors like Hickenlooper, for example. There was a lot less discussions and things that happened. Polis is very involved, and there is a divide on the Democratic side.
All right, Andy, I want to hear from you. Do you agree that there's a divide with what Michael just said, or is this unusual to see so many vetoes coming from him?
I think first of all, we don't have a divide necessarily, as we have very interesting ideas coming from leaders that have really open minds about things. But Governor Polis is a legislator by nature. He was in the United States Congress. He was a businessman. He's now the chief executive, but he thinks like a legislator. So I've had legislators come to me and say, he comes in and sits down in legislative committee meetings with us, kind of thing. So he wants to be a part of this. He wants to get into the meat of these details, which we haven't found recently in governors of the past, no offense to previous. But in that regard, you have Polis that really wants to know what this is about, how it's going to get funded. If he doesn't agree, he's going to say so. So I think you have unusual sway this session by this governor, who is a moderate, who is a businessman, but a Democrat. I think the Democrats in the legislature want to see things passed. Labor peace, for example, was something that was really difficult to swallow for a lot of people. And I think the governor finally said it's not going to happen here. And I think part of what that was about was his business mind, his business background, saying, if you don't have business on board, I'm not on board. That makes a substantial difference in Colorado when we're trying to make money. We're trying to be that which we are profitable and otherwise. But to the extent to which there's a divide, I would say there's not. There's just a lot of extensive ideas going back and forth. And I think the last minute changes to bills don't necessarily reflect the change in the governor's office as it does the last final bill has to be everybody inclusively a part of it. That's what that's about. And I think it's democracy at work.
Okay, and so the legislative session is over, but there may still be work left to do. There's a lot of talk about a possible special session, particularly on two different topics. One is a bill that deals with artificial intelligence regulations, and the other is Medicaid funding if the federal government were to make cuts. So I want to hear from both of you. Do you expect a special session? And would that be a good thing, or should we just wait until January? Andy?
Well, I think we are going to see a special session. Most likely, I think we're going to see it on the AI strategy than we are on Medicaid. But again, as I said earlier, it's really going to depend on what the White House is doing and what the administration does with regard to cuts in federal programs. That being said, though, I think AI is interesting because in the bill itself that was talking about the social media platform, for example, I think there's a lot of emphasis on what the companies have to do, the company's responsibility versus what government does in that process. And I think Jared Polis had an issue with that. He vetoed it. But I think AI specifically might be of interest in a special session because I don't think it was resolved yet. And I also think that there's more to come, and the governor sees that coming, and I think he wants to stay ahead of the curve on that. that.
All
So
right.
special session to come.
Michael, I'll give you the closing word on this one. Are we going to see a special session?
I don't think so on Medicaid. I agree that, I don't think there's going to be cuts that are big enough from the federal government to impact the budget so much that they have to come back. I do agree that it's more likely on the AI issue. And this is one of those that went to the end of session. I think the governor's office thought they were going to pass the bill, that they wanted to delay it. That didn't happen. You run out of time. And we know that Governor Polis is not afraid to call a special session. He's called several of them, including last year on property taxes. So I think it's probably, if it happens, it's AI related and it's very narrow, maybe a couple issues, but isn't going to try to open this up to have more battles with Democrats during special session. So we'll see. But I think it's one of those when you push stuff off to the end of session and then you don't get the outcome you want, sometimes you have to come back to work.
All right, we'll see if it happens. Thank you, guys. Stay right there, and you stay right there as well, because after the break, our political analysts will be back as we continue to look ahead to the 2026 elections. Welcome back. As we continue to look ahead to the 2026 election cycle, it may start to feel a little bit like deja vu. Democrat Tricia Calvarese announced she plans to challenge Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert in next year's midterms. If Calvarese wins the primary, it would be a rematch of last year's election. Boebert won with 53% of the vote. Let's bring our analysts back in. All right, Michael, I'll start with you this time. As a Republican, you'd probably be feeling pretty good to have Calvarese run again. What's your take on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the clearest sign that Democrats are not targeting this race, that they're not taking it that seriously, because it wasn't really competitive this last time. Boebert won by 12%. That's a healthy margin, double digits. I think that she's in line to do that again. And, if you had somebody who could be seen as a little more moderate, you need tens of millions of dollars to try to make this race closer. I think they're really looking at the House and saying, you know what, CD8 is where we're going to put our money, or CD3, and need to figure out, how do you get the majority back if you're Democrats, and it's not really wasting your time on seats that are safely Republican. This is the most Republican seat. I mean, some of them are pretty close, but this is the most Republican seat in the state. And even though Boebert doesn't, doesn't do better than some other candidates, I don't think that she's in any danger of doing it. I think Calvarese being the nominee is a good thing for Republicans.
Andy, I want to hear from you. Is this a smart move politically for Calvarese to run again in this district?
Well, first of all, I applaud her for wanting to do it again. I think it's really non-competitive, and I think also it doesn't have to do so much with Calvarese as it does with Boebert. I called Boebert a clown on this show last year or 2 years ago. She has cleaned up her clownness, but what she has done is sort of revamp her image and start to take Congress seriously for the first time in her congressional career. And I think that has more to do with how it becomes less competitive. Not so much the candidate that we put up. Tricia Calvarese obviously is going to be a known entity. She ran before, but she lost significantly. I don't think it's as competitive. But I do think that overall the Lauren Boebert makeover did a lot for her. She's probably going to win by more this time.
Okay, so this is not the only potential rematch on next year's ballot. So we also know, and we've talked about this before, Yadira Caraveo wants to take on Congressman Gabe Evans in CD8. My question is about rematches. We've started to see this pattern where we're seeing repeat races. Andy, I'll start with you on this one. Is there a strategy to that, or is it a better idea to bring in fresh faces?
Well, it depends. That's a great question, Ashley. And actually, that's something that consultants like us look at all the time, about whether is a rematch make any sense? Does it seem like it's going to be palpable for voters? Does it seem like there's a chance at all that the loser might gain some points? We did a story on this show last week about the voters that would still vote for the vice president, still vote for Donald Trump. So you look at those constantly and think about that as both the candidate and also as the party. But in CD8, for example, I think it's interesting because there's some more dynamics in that race that weren't there last time. And Gabe Evans has been sort of the mouthpiece for Donald Trump in Colorado. I mean, he's really done exactly what the president wants him to do in the seat. The president's already endorsed him, obviously. So it's a race that Gabe Evans has to lose. However, as I've always said, it's easiest to unseat an incumbent after the first term. So I think Yadira Caraveo coming back and seeing if this is a possibility for her is something significant enough that we want to look at it. CD8, as Michael said, much more competitive, much more dynamic, and it really is a third in that district. And so you really find those races coming close in percentage points. And when we look at the race between Evans and Caraveo, she didn't lose by very much. But she also has a campaign to run now, despite the fact that she has some more added things added to to her personality and to things that are happening publicly for her now. So that all being said, there's a lot to be still noted about a rematch and see if that works.
Michael, let's get your take on this phenomenon of rematches.
Yeah, I think it depends on how the last race went, right? If somebody loses and it's embarrassing and they ran a horrible campaign, you don't necessarily want to see that person again. But I think there's a reason in politics why you see several, people either run again or run for different offices. You think about, Hickenlooper or Polis, or even on the Republican side, somebody like Mike Kaufman or John Suthers. They build a name. People know who they are. You have a reputation. You have established fundraising. Like, those are the biggest things. Name ID and fundraising, the hardest things to build in political matches. If you can start out with that, that gives you an advantage. So I think, if you're a party looking at it, you're like, on one hand, for example, in CD8, is Caraveo somebody who has raised money? She's name ID is high, but how was that campaign before? And that is what I think a lot of Democrats are sitting down trying to figure out right now is this the best candidate to do it? Is it worth kind of having the fundraising and name ID to go with somebody who just lost? But I think in politics, I would always pick somebody who is more well-known, who has name ID and can raise money if you're going into a tough race.
Well, let's talk about Caraveo here for a moment. She's been in the news this week. The Colorado Sun is reporting that her battle with depression is maybe a lot worse than what she's said about it publicly. The details include suicide attempts last year and claims that she mistreated staffers. Now, she told us here on Colorado Point of View, we had her on back in March, that she is getting professional help. And so we're not going to talk about that part of this, but I do want to hear from each of you. Does a report coming out at a time like this, when we're still way out from midterm elections, is this going to be impactful to her election? Michael, start with you.
I would say it is, especially in the primary, right? And we talked about, is this the best person, whether she ran the race or whatever else is going on? There are people sitting down thinking, are we going to tilt the scale one way or the other and say, we want her to win, we don't want her to win? Does outside Democratic money come in that primary? She did open up about her mental health to Matt Morrow on this show last year. I commended her for doing so at the time. I still do. But of course, voters are going to weigh everything in when they look at, is this the strongest candidate to represent us, to go up against Gabe Evans, who's going to have a lot of money? All those things are going to be factored in. But I do think, I think the stories people should read and see what happened. But also, anybody going out as an elected official, as a public person saying, these are the struggles I had, this is the help I'm getting, I think that's commendable.
Andy, I want to hear from you on how this may or may not impact her race.
Sure. I first want to say, when she was on the show last year with Matt Morrow, she was very open about it. I commended her personally about that. And I also wanted to say publicly that I think it's really important that this not be sort of over-scrutinized, because she is seeking help, she has received help, and she has decided herself as a grown adult woman who has not only an MD, but also obviously has congressional experience, to say, I'm going to run again. That alone should be enough to say she's commended for that, and she should be awarded an opportunity to fight in the primary. Also, the DCCC, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, has targeted CD8 already. So even if she's not the candidate, we're still targeting that race. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot to be said for the fact that there's money being poured into CD8 because it's competitive. But Yadira Caraveo has a story right now to tell about mental health. She did have some situational issues last year that was really sort of sensitive, and it does nuance whether or not she can do the job well. But that being said, honesty and openness is something we're lacking in federal government right now, for sure. And I think what people see is this is refreshing. This is actually somebody who is a human being and is willing to open up about it. I commend her for it, and I hope she wins.
All right, let's move on to another name in Colorado politics making headlines this week, and that is Tina Peters. The former Mesa County clerk is currently serving a 9-year prison sentence for tampering with voting machines during the 2020 election. President Trump is calling for her to be freed. Now, in a statement on Truth Social, he wrote, "Tina is an innocent political prisoner being horribly and unjustly punished in the form of cruel and unusual punishment." He went on to say, "I am hereby directing the Department of Justice to take all necessary action to help secure the release of this hostage being held in a Colorado prison by the Democrats for political reasons." Andy, I'll start with you. What do you make of that statement from the president?
It further shows that the president probably needs some mental help. And somebody to help him along in this process, because Tina Peters is as guilty as they come. Fellow Republicans even found she was guilty. She was the first one in the country, by the way, to be convicted of altering voting data. Altering voting data, and she's in jail for it. And the president wants, obviously one of his soldiers released. That being said, the president can't get somebody back that he mistakenly put in El Salvador. He refuses to do that, but he wants Tina Peters released from a jail in Colorado. It makes no sense. It further shows the ineptitude of the president and the White House at this time. And finally, Tina Peters is guilty, Ashley. She's guilty of what she was convicted of, and so she should serve her sentence. I don't understand why we're questioning this, because this president, who has some moderate authority to say that the Justice Department should look into getting her freed because she did something that was clearly illegal. This president has done illegal things, gotten away with it, and he wants all his lieutenants to as well. That's what this is about.
Michael, let's hear from you. Your thoughts on the president getting involved in the Tina Peters case.
Yeah, I don't think Tina Peters should be freed. She shouldn't be pardoned. She violated it's a state crime, state law, and so the federal government really has no place in this. This is something that Colorado deals with, the Governor Polis would deal with, and obviously he's not going to pardon her. And so there's no role for the federal government in this. I do think we have to be honest about what happened here, and this was not some partisan, this was a DA who was a Republican in Mesa County. This is a jury of your peers, I'm guessing a lot of which in Mesa County were Republicans also, that found and convicted her. And so I think if we care about the rule of law, if we care about what is right and wrong, and we do care about secure elections, and so we have to get to the point where we hold people accountable for their actions, and I think that's what's happening in this case.
All right, thank you both for the conversation. As always, still to come, some public land in the West may soon be for sale. We're going to be breaking down the impact and how U.S. representatives from Colorado feel about it. Welcome back. There's a new idea on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. to sell off thousands of acres of public lands and use some of it to build affordable housing. Now, Colorado is home to more than 22 million acres of public lands. We're talking about things like national parks, national forests, and wilderness areas. Now, none of Colorado land is on the chopping block, but there is a new Republican-led effort to sell parcels near Zion National Park in Utah and around Las Vegas, Nevada. Now, that would help generate federal revenue and ease housing shortages, according to supporters. In committee, Colorado Republican Congressman Jeff Hurd voted against the idea, and so did Colorado's Democratic Congressman Joe Neguse, who called the measure, quote, deeply irresponsible. Now, this is just one piece of a budget reconciliation package that will make up what the president calls his one big, beautiful bill. Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert is also on that committee. She voted yes. Here's a statement from her where she says the package utilizes our federal lands for energy exploration, streamlines the permitting process for Colorado oil and gas producers, and invests in water infrastructure. Right now, other committees are working on different pieces of this reconciliation bill, including things like Medicaid and FEMA. House Speaker Mike Johnson says he hopes to get it passed by Memorial Day. Well, thanks so much for joining in on the conversation. For Colorado Point of View, I'm Ashley Michaels. We'll see you right back here next week.